All right, so this next topic is really, really funny to me. All right, so the Iranian president, Hassan Rouhani, I guess that's how you say it.
I think it's Rouhani, but I think we both got it wrong.
Definitely not Rouhani.
But,
Okay,
let's start this one over.
I think he had it right.
I think he had it right. I'll just shut up.
At the very least, it's probably close. I know I got the first name, at least.
Alright, but yeah, start.
All right. So again, great topic. The Iranian president Hassan Rouhani was interviewed by Christine Amanpour from CNN, and it was I didn't see the whole interview, but it seemed like it was a good interview just from some of the quotes that got from it. And one of the best quotes was when Christine asked if he had been keeping up with our election and watching the debates. And to that he responded, "Sometimes when I would have time, some of it was broadcast live and I would watch it. Some of it was quite laughable. It was very strange, the things that they spoke of. Some of them wouldn't even know where Tehran was in relation to Iran. Some of them didn't know where Iran was geographically, not distinguishing that one is the capital of the other." So what they spoke of was quite far away from the truth, so the people of Iran were looking at it as a form of entertainment, if you will, and found it laughable. She then...
New America!
And this is why!
So she then asked what he thought about certain candidates like Ted Cruz, who had been saying they would rip the Iran deal to shreds. And to that he responded, "Can a government become a signatory to an international agreement and then the subsequent government tear it to shreds? This is something that only the likes of Saddam Hussein would do. Saddam Hussein, previous to attacking Iran in 1980, did sign an agreement with Iran and then tore it to shreds himself and then attacked Iran. So any government that replaces the current government must keep itself committed to the commitments given by the previous administration. Otherwise, that government, that entire country, will lose trust internationally and no longer have the type of needed trust to operate in the international arena. So finally, I think most of these are political slogans at best." And to me, that was just awesome.
I don't know how I feel about a foreign dictator,
Comparing us to a foreign dictator.
comparing us to another foreign dictator, the one that we actually got rid of. It'd be like, Angela Merkel calling Obama Hitler.
But I think that's what makes the statement so great.
I agree.
Because it's showing that how far, we're opposed to these people who are dictators, and we go and we fight them, yet we do some of the same stuff that they do, and willing to go that far. And it's that's why I loved it so much.
And I think the main point that he was trying to say is, like, when you make a policy, when you pass something, just because you got a new government in place doesn't mean you can just go back and just destroy the stuff the past government did. Like, it was done for a reason. It was agreed upon for a reason. Stick by what your government says. Even if you don't like it, stick by it. There's a lot of decisions that we've made in our lives that we don't necessarily like, but you still got to work with them and stick by them and keep going. You can say you don't like it. You can say you never want to do it again, but you still have done it, and you need to stand by your decision that was made.
Exactly. And I think another thing to it is that if we keep breaking agreements and deals like this, then no one's going to want to make a deal with us, ever. And all of our deals will end up eventually getting broken because people are just like, oh, they're not trustworthy anyway. I can't count on them to keep their end of the deal, so why should I keep this?
Yeah, why should I make a deal at all?
Yeah.
Well, I don't think that... Now, I do know that the president and the Ayatollah are two totally different people in Iran. But for me, when, your government doesn't change for 40, 50 years, it might be a little harder to understand when, a new government, and that's what happens in our country every 4 years.
But is it really a new government?
It absolutely is.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
No.
I understand.
What are you saying, Serena?
that the government in itself doesn't really change that much every 8 years because you've got the same people sitting in Congress for 40, 50 years.
Well, there is that. But they're also holding those same 40, 50-year prejudices against Iran for something that happened mid-70s. But for me, it is a change of government every time there's an election. Maybe it's not a complete, overhaul or anything like that, but it is definitely a new administration. It's a new set of ideals, new set of policies.
It never goes anywhere because Congress blocks everything out of it.
And that's been recent. That's been, since Obama. Congress used to work.
Ooh, Congress does not
Congress
work
works better. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, that's better. Congress works better.
Well, I watched the same interview that you watched, and I'll absolutely admit, well, I do know where Iran is, and I know that I know the capital, but I am not that educated in a lot of Iranian culture and the people and the government, and it was very eye-opening for me whenever you hear about our presidential election through their eyes, and you're like, they're right. He was completely right in everything he said, and it's like, okay, yeah, it is entertainment. It's just like watching a comedy show. And then on top of that, he had a lot of really good things that he was talking about, as far as exactly what you were talking about, shredding the agreement. There was also the conversation about releasing our hostages, and he's like, if you guys are willing to work with us and make it, come to the line, then we have no reason to not work with you. It really made them seem more human and more workable listening to him than what I've always seen, what's always been portrayed.
Yeah.
And that's the problem right there. And I think I'm very open to a lot of people, so I don't really listen to what the media says about people until I've met people. Like, I've met a few Iranian people, and I went up and asked them, like, hey, how do you feel about your country? Like, what do you think about this? Like, we see some horrible things.
First conversation.
And they're like, yeah, it's literally. Well, of course you get to know the person for a second, but no, like, I will ask people those type of conversations because, one, I doubt anyone else has. So they're very open, they're very willing to talk about those things. They're waiting for someone to ask them about their culture so that they can tell you how awesome they think it is. They can tell you that, no, we think our country is doing just fine and our leader is looking out for us. He's making, if I wouldn't be here without our leader, he's paying for all of my schooling. As long as I go back and work for 3 to 4 years, I can then leave and do whatever I want to, and he's given me a free education. So it's like, when the media continues to portray people a certain way and don't give honest opinions, or don't even allow those people to come and give their honest opinion without either overshadowing it or sound biting the crap out of it to make them sound horrible, we get a very bad picture of the rest of the world.
That's right.
And other countries do that to us, but still, if we then portrayed our media to them, if we gave them a media channel based on us and our beliefs, and we weren't acting ridiculous, they would again get to see us, and I guarantee you they would turn it on. If there's an international news station, I would turn it on every single day. Like,
honestly, it's probably, I hate to say it, it's probably either BBC or Al Jazeera.
Al Jazeera. Well,
those are the two, I would say American international news sources. I'm sure Univision has stuff, but I'd say when it comes to a more worldwide view, if you watch BBC and you watch Al Jazeera, you've covered the Western, the Middle Eastern, and probably the Eastern, part of this planet. So,
but those need to have more mainstream coverage.
Yeah, you would have more complete coverage.
But those things need to be pushed to the more forefront, because it's like they don't get the same coverage as Fox News. There's not an Al Jazeera channel if I turn on my TV. So it's like, that's what I mean. Like, yeah, I can go online and I can find these things, but we're lazy. I'm even lazy. I don't mind saying it. I want to be able to turn on the screen and watch it. I know I don't want to have to go searching for it every single time I want it. I would like for it to be readily available.
Yep.
Actually, I'm curious if we have Al Jazeera.
I watch so much CNN, and a lot of it's just simply because I am too lazy to change the channel. But the worst part of that, actually, and I said something about this a couple of weeks ago to you, I get more news by muting my TV and reading what's scrolling across the bottom of it than I do actually watching the news. Because it's, 45 minutes of opinions and this and that, whereas I have little headlines that just run across the bottom, and I feel like I get more news that way. If we could come up with a news channel that was based on those and not the opinions. Let's talk about facts. Let's get more interviews with, the Ayatollah. Let's get, more
Stay
interviews.
away from the pundits.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't care about the pundits. That's not what I'm here to listen to. I learned more with that interview about Iranian people and the culture and even about our country than what I've learned in weeks watching CNN.
And our news is so good at scaring people, people are too scared to even go up and talk to people about those things.
Oh, yeah.
That's a shame. Like, you just see someone and you're instantly like, oh crap, they might try to blow me up. Like the kid who built a clock, brought it to school, and they automatically assumed it was a bomb. It was because he was Muslim. And that's the only reason why. Like, no one else could have done that, and they're like, oh, bomb. They may have been like, foreign device, let's check this out. I'm not saying I wouldn't check out a briefcase a kid brings to school, but once you find out it's a clock, is there a reason to lock a child up, put him in handcuffs, and take him into questioning? No, they wouldn't have done that to white kid, black kid, Asian kid. It was strictly because he was Muslim, and there's this weird stigma now. And we keep creating these stigmas about various races to the point to where the races don't want to mingle because they're so afraid of the other one. And that is a serious problem.
I wouldn't say that the stigma is weird. It is overblown. It is a stereotype. But, right now there's a lot of fear with Islam from non-Islamists just because, of what, we're not shown on TV, the Muslims, marching in protest. And, you don't see a lot of, on the news of the blacks doing that, during Ferguson and others. But they'll show the rowdy. They'll show, the votes for ratings. And so, there is that fear there, but I wouldn't necessarily call it unjustified.
Well, and I can't say it's totally unjustified because nothing is totally unjustified or else there wouldn't be any grounds for that type of stereotype.
Right.
But like you said, they only show the rowdy. Yeah. They don't truly give unopinionated unopinionated topics, or they don't allow you to make up your own opinion. Hey, here's these people doing radical things, but look at all these other people doing great things. Look at all these other people within the country who are opposing these radicalists and dying by the droves because they oppose these radicalists. They don't show that, They don't show the guy whose whole family was ripped out of his house because he opposed Al-Qaeda or he opposed ISIS. And if they show those stories and Americans are like, oh my God, like they hate ISIS and Al-Qaeda just as much as we do. Not hate, but they don't agree with them and they want them to stop what they're doing just as much as we do. You never want to hate anybody. I think hate's a very strong word and we need to make sure we use it effectively.
I hate ISIS and Al-Qaeda. I'm okay with saying it.
I don't hate them. I hate the organization, but I can't hate all the people inside of it because, again, you're a product of your environment. And if you have nothing and someone tells you they're going to give you the world, that's tough to turn down no matter what.
Oh, I'm not saying it's easy to turn down, but it's still a choice, even if you're making the wrong choice. The guy that works for Hydra still works for Hydra.
But you also got to look at child soldiers in Africa, and there's child soldiers in Islamic armies. These kids are taken so young, sold so young. You know what I mean? Sometimes they're not even taken. Their family sells them just to make sure they can feed themselves. That's all this child has ever known. So again, how can you blame that person? So
They don't know any better to start with.
No.
Yeah.
Even if they make this choice, they don't realize that it's making a wrong choice because that's the way it's always been and it's always felt right. Nobody's ever told them it's wrong.
Right, and that I'm okay. Well, I'm not okay with, but that is more understandable than people from America, from Germany, from all across the world going to be like, no, I seriously want to behead people. I want to set people on fire. I want to torture women. I don't understand that mentality, and I'm sure that in their own head they're not doing evil.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody thinks they're doing evil when they're doing evil.
Well, it's for their God.
Right.
Every religion does crazy things in the name of their
justified. It's
Lord and
not
God. Exactly.
But for me, yes, a kid who was sold into slavery and raised to be a warrior and things like that is more understandable than, John Smith up the road here saying, hey, let's go to ISIS.
I agree.
Like, it just makes no sense to me.
But again, I can't hate them as a person, because hating people is wrong, because when you hate someone, you automatically, write them off. You should be, I hate the organization, I may hate what they stand for, but those people have just as much right to find out new information and be able to grow and learn. That when you just write them off as hate, you deny them an opportunity to come back into the fold. And I think that's what a lot of religions are supposed to preach, is that, hey, no one is unredeemable.
I don't want them back in the fold, I just want them dead.
I know. and that's your right to believe that.
Hating people feeds into the prejudices, and it feeds into the bigotry, and this goes into so many different levels. I can't even begin to touch on it all. But our unwillingness to reach out and help people and care about people anymore is fed by these stereotypes and this hatred. Hatred's not acceptable. It's not. Because whenever you are okay with hatred, then you're okay with being able to walk away from somebody who needs help. You're okay with being able to deny people their personal rights, their basic human rights. That's not okay. Not ever.
And I could understand that
She said that so
outside of
said that better than I did.
and ISIS. Because I'm sorry, they have forfeited every right to being treated as a sensible human being when they were beheading people, when they're setting them on fire while they're locked in cages or hanging over a bit of gasoline. No, I'm sorry, you're not treating people like humans. I'm not treating you like a human either. But that's me.
But again, do you hate them? That kind of goes back to the eye for an eye type of thing. Do you hating them? You know what I mean? That allows them to then turn around and be like, see, they hate us. And it fuels their fire even more. It's like, see, they don't want us with them. They want us to be out here by ourselves. They don't want to include us, and they want to control us. They hate us, so now we can hate them. So
no, we were fine with arming them until they started doing it. Once they started going, they started doing the beheadings and everything and kidnapping people, and I have no need for them to come back into the fold.
Okay.
Hey, no, I agree, and I love the contrasting opinions in the same house. That's funny. That's awesome.
It should be made law.
Yeah. Wait, that last part. Wait a minute. Made law.
You are
Damn,
feeding into their cause by hatred. But you're.
No, I can distinguish between radical Islamists and a regular Islamist and Muslim, just like I can distinguish between the Westboro Baptist Church and Catholicism or any other Christianity. It's a sect. I don't blame all of Christians for Westboro or the KKK. I don't blame all of Islam for 9/11. But
but you hate
I'm
ISIS.
able to do that. Yeah. I'm able to differentiate.
Mm-hmm. But some people they get so hatred, they get so angry that they can't do that. And that's what again, when I say I don't want hate to be like a topic or a term you use lightly, is because when you hate someone, you then kind of write off everyone that can kind of fall into that umbrella. And it becomes it allows you to just paint the whole Islamic group as radical terrorists when you hate one sect, because you hate them so much, you hate all Islam. And that is the problem, and that's what we need to make sure we stay away from. And I understand you can differentiate, but some people can't. Yeah.
And whenever you start talking about hate, you're going into such a huge, broad area.
Mm-hmm.
Think about the Black Lives Matter movement and the hatred towards the police, and God knows some of it's probably absolutely warranted. Absolutely is. But whenever we start preaching hate, either, on this side or on that side, nothing happens. It just fuels the fire. Exactly. It just makes it worse. That's
the middle will become a compromise, it become a battleground.
Yeah, and that's not what we need. We absolutely need to find that middle ground, the compromise. We don't need to be in battle with each other.
And I do agree that just one small group of Black Lives Matters, pigs in a blanket, fine like bacon, that's not right. But then to turn around and say all of Black Lives Matters thinks those things, that's so wrong.
It's the exact same thing.
Back to sex.
Yeah.
And all Christians for Westboro. And all Muslims for 9/11.
Yeah. You just can't do that. But we do need more objective opinions on various races and places. And I'm happy that you did see that, Serena. Like, just sitting down and looking at that interview, you learned a lot about them as a people. And you looked at it very objectively. And you didn't allow just, he's from Iran, I'm not going to listen to this.
There wasn't this added, look, it's the Iranian Ayatollah, I've got to turn this off. No, I need to watch this. I was incredibly intrigued, and kudos to CNN for showing that. Actually, they did a wonderful interview.
Who was it? There was an interview we were watching. I think it was like 2 years ago, and it might have been Assad. But when they were interviewing, you're like, wow, he can speak. He can.
I don't remember.
I think it was Assad, because he came up with.
It might have been.
Yeah,
I think you're right.
And it wasn't,
Yeah, because I can picture his face now.
Right, it wasn't the conservative soundbite interview. It wasn't a liberal soundbite interview. It would, I'm sure he was scripted, and he was prepared and all that stuff. But he came across very sincere, very open, and this is what I think. That's, this is what it's like in my country,
I believe we all have the right to be humanized. We should not be out portraying everybody as a monster. While I don't believe in what you believe in, I need to be reminded that you are a person, that you are a human, and showing these interviews, making these people personalized and human, that's going to lead us more towards compromise. No, I don't want to blow this person up. They're a human. They've got a family. They've got a life. Things matter to them. Let's sit down and talk about a resolution. Let's find a compromise. I think that the more we humanize people, especially our enemies, the better chance we have of actually finding peaceful resolutions.